Hello, I'm Felicia Johnson, your national president for the American Businesswomen's Association. And I'm here to ask you, are you bold enough to do your thing? Is your swag hiding? Boldness doesn't mean that we're without fear or anxiety. It's forcing ourselves to operate even in the face of fear or anxiety. It means being courageous, speaking or acting in the face of possible danger or rebuke. A few years ago, one of my TSU, Tennessee State University alums, was involved in a very national episode with a Waffle House shooting, Mr. James Shaw. And he said that when he acted at that time, it was not without fear, but even in spite of the fear, he used boldness to take action and to confront the shooter, and even in the face of his own demise. And he said that he was not without fear, and he wasn't trying to be a hero when he did it, but he used that boldness to take action at the time that it was needed. So it's not without fear or anxiety, but allowing the boldness to take you to the further step. It means pushing past our fear to do the right thing, or in my case, what makes my heart sing. Songs like Feet Don't Fail Me Now, or I've Got a New Attitude. Those are just a few that push me past my comfort zone. I'm sure you have some that do the same for you. Scripture even says to speak to ourselves in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs. Even though ABWA is not a religious or partisan organization, I am married to a preacher, so sometimes it comes out, even in my speaking. So in Scripture, in Ephesians 5:19 and in Colossians 3:16, it talks about speaking to ourselves in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs that help us to get past those moments when we feel fear or anxiety. Have you ever had to bluff your way through a situation, fake it till you make it? Well, let me tell you about the imposter syndrome. It is real. Have you ever gotten that dream job? I mean, you've tried to get this position, you finally make it, and when you get there, you think, oh, they're going to think I don't belong here. They're going to think I don't know what I'm doing. Am I really supposed to be here? Do I know what I'm doing? That's the imposter syndrome. Yes, you know what you're doing. Yes, you should be there. Yes, you're ready. We have to push past that fear. Everyone feels that way at some time, but with our attitude of boldness, we are able to push past this. I remember down here in Florida a few years ago, some of the ladies would take on this stance. It's called the Wonder Woman stance. Dun, da, da. We can do anything. It helps you to take on an attitude of boldness, an attitude of I can do it, I can make it. Try it sometime. Just stand up when you feel fear and just put your hands on your hips and just stand there and allow that Wonder Woman spirit to just take you over. In researching my topic, I also found an article that talked about enclosed cognition. And when I heard it, I thought, what in the world is that? Have you ever heard of that? Well, let me tell you what it is. A few years ago, there was a young woman. It was about 20 years ago now. Her name was Janae Jaquez. And at the time, there was a series on. Oprah Winfrey did a talk show. And I don't know if you guys ever watched it, but I used to look at Oprah. I loved her show. And this young lady was talking about, she was at a time in her life where she was depressed. She didn't have a lot going on. She had a really hard time in a relationship, and she was just really having a hard time. And she heard about a charity sale where they were going to be having Oprah's items for sale. So she went to the sale. Now, she said she couldn't afford a lot of the things that were there, but there was a pair of shoes there that she could afford. And she said, in her own words, the shoes were not her size, because Oprah's feet were a different size than hers, but she bought the shoes because she could use those to help her to personify the essence of who Oprah was. And she said what she would do is when she was feeling depressed, she would take those shoes out of the closet and she would stand in those shoes. She would just stand there and allow the essence of who Oprah is to just overtake her. And she would think about this woman, this powerful woman, dynamic woman, articulate woman who was able to conquer so many things in her past and to be a success that she is. And she would allow that to take her over. And she said that at the time, she didn't have much money and she felt depressed and low. But as a result of her taking on this enclosed cognition, she found the courage and the strength to go back to school. And in 2009, she graduated from college. She wrote a book. And she says that she stands taller every day as a result of this experience. Have you ever had to try and use that enclosed cognition? I remember when I was in Florida last year, I was speaking at an event and I talked about enclosed cognition. And I asked if anyone had ever used boldness to step out, if they would give an example. And the young lady who was there raised her hand. And at the time, I had on a gold jacket because the colors for the American Businesswomen's Association, when I started a few years ago, was black and gold. And so every time we would have a meeting when I was in this department, the ladies that would come in once a month with black and gold on, and they'd have on this name tag that said ABWA. And I thought, what in the world is ABWA? So they never would tell me, but every month they would come in one day in the black and gold with the name tag. And I thought, these women are the decision makers. They're the ones who are in charge. They were the supervisors, the directors. And so at the time that I got promoted, there were about 4 or 5 of us at the same time that got promoted. And then all of a sudden, one of those young ladies started coming in once a month with the black and gold and the name tag. I thought, how in the world did she get in? I want to be in. So I asked, what is this ABWA? They invited me to a membership meeting and I went. So then I found out what ABWA was and I joined. Well, when I was talking to this group down in Florida and this young lady raised her hand, I had on a gold jacket and a black dress. And she said, I'm being bold and I'm asking, can I have your jacket? Oh my gosh, I was so blown away. But I took that jacket off and I gave it to that young lady. And even to this day, I still mentor her. And she calls and lets me know what how her business is doing. And it's just an humbling experience to know that someone would want to take on your persona and take on some of the characteristics that you have. So that's a testament to enclosed cognition on my behalf. So that was really powerful. So boldness creates its own momentum. Stop expecting the complete information before you step in. Sometimes you get the A and you get the Z, but you don't have the middle part. I was telling them I travel a lot, being the national president, and sometimes I travel at night and I drive. So at night, when I'm driving, I can only see as far as my headlights. So whether I'm going 10 miles or 500 miles, I have to go by the distance I can see with my headlights. That's as far as I can see. So that's the way we are sometimes with our careers or our plans. We may know where we want to go. We've got that vision in mind, and we know where we are right now, where we started. But we don't know if there's a storm along the way. We don't know if there's closed roads, there's construction, or there's a detour. But we have the beginning and we have the end, and we figure it out as we go along. So we use our GPS. When we step out of our comfort zone and go for it takes on a life of its own. Boldness helps us to translate our values into tangible actions. When we are bold, we are willing to risk shame and etiquette for what is right. We dare to publicly fail if need be, and our willingness to risk failure leads at times to exhilarating successes. I remember when I was in college, I attended a historically black college and university, Tennessee State University in Nashville, Tennessee. And at the time that I went, I was going to school. I was away from home first time. And I had been in the band since I had been in 4th grade. So I knew music. So I went to my comfort place, to the band room. And I thought, I'm going to try out for this band. They had a phenomenal band in the music department. And I thought, I'm going to try out for this band. Well, what I didn't know was they had recently starting allow women to be instrumentalists in the band. If you were a majorette or a flag corps girl, you could be in the band, but you couldn't be an instrumentalist until recently. Well, I'm a saxophone player, so I thought, well, I'm going to try out anyway. So I went and tried out. I made the band, and I always loved to dance. So we would do, with my high school band, you'd play and dance. You know, we did our routines and everything. And so when you're in the college band, you don't have your music in front of you. You have to memorize your music, learn your dance steps, know the choreography, know the precision for the drills. And so I had to do all of that. And I noticed that there were some team members or band members who were not able to dance and play at the same time. Well, that's important because everything works together. So what I did was I started after rehearsal, I would take those members that were struggling and I would say, look, we're going to learn how to do this dance and play at the same time. And I would teach them how to do the dances. And I would do it and we'd march and we'd play and we'd dance. And so the band directors noticed the leadership skills in me and noticed that people were following my lead and doing what I said and learning how to do the routines. And for the first time ever, they asked me to be drum major for this university. There had never been a female drum major at this university. So I was the first female drum major for Tennessee State University's Aristocrat of Bands, which was phenomenal. But it was because I was doing what I love to do, and I was able to use that leadership and that boldness to step out, even though I was uncomfortable because I had never been away from home. I didn't know these people, but I saw a need and I stepped out. So sometimes we have to use what's in us to take us to the next level. So I stepped up and I did that. Now, even with my leadership journey here with ABWA, even before I ever ran, some of our members would ask me, are you ready to step up for leadership? And I thought, I'm not ready for that. I don't think so. I'm not ready. But they planted a seed. And over the years, I would think, I think I might be able to do that. And so after a few years, they kept one planted, one watered, and as I said in my speech, they almost drowned me, keep asking me. But anyway, I finally did. I stepped up, and at the very last minute, I ran for a District 1 vice president only because I needed our district to be able to vote at national conference. So I did that, and I didn't win the first time I ran, but did that stop me? No. I came back, and I ran again, and this time I won, and I was able to proceed. But sometimes we're able to fail publicly, but we have to learn to use those experiences for good. Another situation with the band, when I was drum major for 2 years, and in my second year of drum majoring, I allowed a situation to cause me to step outside of who I was. I'm not a cursing woman, but this particular time, something happened and it really upset me, and I kind of lost it. Well, because I was a leader in the association and people were watching, I could not allow that to happen, and the band directors couldn't allow that to happen. So publicly, in front of 300 instrumentalists and however many majorettes and flag corps members we had, I was asked to step down. I was devastated. I thought, oh my gosh, and where I grew up, your name is so important because it represents your family. And I thought, my family's going to be embarrassed. I just thought it was just horrible. My heart was just broken. But what I did, I used that failure. I could have stomped away and said, forget this band. I don't have to be in this band. I don't need this. I'm going on and do something else. But what I did, because I knew that I was a leader, and even in that failure, that people were watching how I reacted. So what I did, I went back on my instrument. I got my saxophone out. I came to band practice. I showed up on time. I participated in every rehearsal. I learned my part. When the new drum majors would ask me to do something, I would do it. I did not buck against the leadership. And what it did, the band directors noticed that professionalism, and they asked me back to drum major. So I was back to being a drum major again, which was the leadership position. So sometimes we have to allow our failures to lead us to our successes. Don't be ashamed of them. They just lead us down a different path. So boldness and courage is being scared to death and saddling up anyway. I think about some of the leaders that we've had over the past in District 1. I think of Tammy McDaniel, who was a young lady that she ran for District 1 vice president 3 times before she actually won, but she never gave up. She kept coming back, and she kept coming back, and she finally won, which was very exciting for her and for us. So there are 7 steps that I want to share with you about how to unleash the bold leader in you and get that attitude of boldness. Number 1, you've got to be more self-aware. You got to know who you are, understand your weaknesses and your strengths, and be able to use those. So you surround yourself with people that are able to fill in the gaps. Say, for instance, if you're not as strong technology-wise, Get you someone around you who is and utilize that. Not only does that help them grow, it helps you grow and you're able to share information. It's all about being able to share and to bring someone else up. As leaders, you don't have to be the one who always has the answer. We just need to keep an open mind and allow ourselves to entertain possibilities and visualize what could happen. Number 2, keep clear priorities. Know what we need to accomplish and set things in order to achieve the goal. That way, we recognize opportunities that will move us toward a goal and not get involved in activities that are a distraction. You ever heard of squirrel? Number 3, speak up. We don't have to be the one who is always talking, but when we have something to say it. Do you remember years ago there was a commercial? It says, when E.F. Hutton speaks, everybody listens. He didn't always have something to say, but when he had something to say, it was profound. So sometimes we have to be the ones that listen, but we have to also be willing to speak up when it's time to speak up. There was a situation I talked about where I had a coworker. It was a male. He and I had the same title at the time. And our manager, who was also male, when I would make a suggestion or make a comment about a particular project or whatever we're working on, it's like they heard it, but they didn't hear it. And so when my coworker would say the same thing, they'd be like, oh, yeah, that's great. The sky is blue. You know, the sun is shining. I just said that. So what I had to do, and I learned, is not only do you have to be willing to speak until you're heard, if you're in a situation where you're the only female or you're low on the totem pole or whatever, but get you someone who has the ear of the people that make the decisions and have them to conspire and be with you and help to bring about your point. So that if you say something and it's not readily accepted, someone says the same thing, they can chime in and say, well, Felicia just said that. Or that goes along with what Felicia was pointing out. You need an advocate. You need someone who is willing to speak up for you as well. Number 4, action and knowledge go together. That means we have to do our homework, our due diligence. This alone increases our confidence as well as our success rate. Number 5, recognize and accept the value of failure. Just like I said, every failure is not a bad thing. We learn a lot from our mistakes and we learn from our failures. We learn how to pick ourselves up from our bootstraps and to move on. I told you about my situation in the band. So that's how we learn how to use those failures and help us even in our leadership. Sometimes as leaders, we don't have all of the answers. We have people around us that help to pour into the decisions that we make. They may or may not be the right decision, but we learn from those. Even in corporations where sometimes the top leaders may have an idea of how they think something should work, but the people that are ones actually doing the work can actually fill in gaps and help them to see a different point of view. Don't be afraid to speak up just because you feel like your opinion may not be accepted. Say something if you have something to say. Number 6, enjoy the small win. Sometimes we want to wait until we have all of the bells and whistles, everything is fantastic, but we need to celebrate the small wins because they lead to big wins. Take the time to acknowledge that you had a small success and just, don't put it off until you get the big win. I use a story that's funny. I didn't realize I had a gambling problem until I went to a casino. I don't know if you guys ever been to a casino, but when I was out of college, one of my aunts took me to Atlantic City. Well, I had never been in a casino, so I went in. Oh my gosh, the bells were ringing, the lights were going, people were winning. So I started putting money. I had saved my little money up from my vacation. And I tell you, that money was gone so fast. I was like, oh, I didn't know I was broke until I went to get some more quarters to put in. I thought, oh my gosh, it's all gone. But I kept thinking, I'm going to be the one that wins next. That light is going to go off for me. Those bells are going to whistle and I'm going to win. And all the time they lure you in. You win just enough to keep you coming back until you're out of all your money. But anyway, so now I don't do casinos unless someone goes with me who has a strong hand. But anyway, start with your small battles, like I said, and celebrate your small wins, and that moves you on to the next one. Finally, number 7, build momentum. When you have a small win and your small victories, use those to parlay into more victories, and that finally gets you to the bigger win. and you just keep celebrating. Do the small things. I remember years ago, I was told when you know the right thing to do and that's all you know, do that until you get the next thing. And then you add on and you add on, and that continues to build your momentum. So also there are some enemies to boldness. It's fear, there's doubt, there's study, there's deliberation. And one of the ladies last night told me a word that I could add to this, where if you study long, you study wrong, and you just keep on wasting time, and you just don't make a decision because you keep studying and studying and studying it. You gotta, as my dad used to say, poop or get off the pot. You gotta do something, step out, make a move. So doubt means that you just don't have sufficient confidence in whatever you're saying, and you can't have doubt and fear and unsure of what the outcome is without taking a step. You got to make a move. Deliberation is a close cousin to procrastination. Like I said, if you study long, you study wrong, you're not going to do it. You just keep looking at it and looking at it and looking at it. There's a movie I was talking about. There's a scene in this movie that I love that's out. I guess I can say the name of it is Collateral, if you've ever seen it. But in this movie, there's this assassin who comes into Los Angeles for one night to murder the witnesses and the defense attorney, prosecuting attorney in this really high profile case. And so he hires a taxi driver for the night, but the taxi driver doesn't know that he's there to murder all these people. He just knows he's being offered this money to ride this guy around for the night. But what happens is, with the first murder, the guy falls onto the taxi cab, which this now makes the taxi cab driver aware of what's going on. And he's like, oh, so he didn't want to do it, of course. He's afraid of this guy who's this assassin. Well, during the course of the movie, he finally gets hold to the credentials that this murderer, the assassin, has, and throws them over this freeway, and it destroys all of it. But the guy hasn't murdered everybody that he needed to. He told him, he said, you got to get my stuff. You got to get my credentials back. And he was like, well, how am I supposed to do that? How am I supposed to do that? He says, you got to go in and convince them that you're me, Felix, and get my stuff. And in the movie, you can see when this guy went, he was terrified. He had to go into this club with all these mobster kind of people, ganger, they had guns and stuff. And he had to go in there and talk to this man and convince him that he was the assassin so that he could get the credentials so they would know who the other people were that he had to murder. So he went in, and the guy said, well, why should I give you this information? It took a lot of time, a lot of money to get this information, and you can't just come up with this overnight. So why should I give you more? And you could see him change from that fearful little man that came in, and it's like he almost like he did a little shake, and he said, I picked up a tail. I had to ditch the material. I don't know if it was the FBI or whoever, or the police, but I picked up a tail and I had to get rid of it. So I need some more. And I was like, oh my gosh, this man just changed. He used that fear to cause him to step into boldness and be someone that he was not. So I love that movie, that scene, that it demonstrates that even in the face of fear and anxiety, you can use that boldness to step up. So why boldness? Because time is precious. Life is short. We don't have a lot of time. A few years ago, there were storms here in Florida. There were fires in Tennessee. There was flooding in Texas. And a lot of our American businesswomen were, just affected by the flooding, the fires, the hurricane, all of that. And so it makes you stop and think, if I don't step out now, when will I do it? The time is now. If it's not now, when? If it's not you, who? We have to take the step, and the opportunities are limited. But we can take that bold step and step out. It's good for our health, and it fires us up. So great things are waiting for us outside of our comfort zone. So unleash your brilliance today in ABWA. Thank you.